In the point 2 release cycle for Empire at War Expanded so far, we've already broken down how we're going to be completely redoing the Imperial rosters for all of the Warlord factions, giving them all entirely unique playstyles. Today we're going to be covering another element of the Imperial reworks coming in Thrawn's Revenge 3.2, their government mechanic Legitimacy. Government mechanics in Empire at War Expanded are a thing we're working on for all factions, and are a set of functions and features which impact how they're able to play, interact with each other, and build up their forces. In prior releases, this has included the Order 65 and 66 choice for the Republic, corporate integration for the CIS, Chief of State bonuses for the New Republic, and the Command Staff for the New Republic and Old Republic. Legitimacy is a mechanic shared between all Imperial factions, including the core Empire, Penastar Alignment, Warlord Zinj, Greater Meldrude, and Ariado Authority, where each group is vying to prove themselves to be the true successor to Palpatine's Empire. With this mechanic, we basically wanted to take the common fan question of, why didn't all the Imperials just team back up and crush the rebels, and put the player in the position of making that decision as well. By accomplishing or failing certain things, each Imperial faction is able to gain or lose legitimacy points. This includes taking or losing planets, with higher value placed on holding planets like Coruscant and Kuat, or losing heroes, especially faction leaders, reducing legitimacy, or various other events like hiring bounty hunters, since we shouldn't need their scum. There are currently two primary effect categories for legitimacy, with more planned to come down the road. First off, whenever you gain legitimacy as an Imperial faction, you have a chance to attract smaller warlord groups to your side, in the form of a set of new recruitable heroes or even units in some cases. The more legitimacy you gain from an action, the higher the chance it'll unlock a new group. So if you capture some random planet in the Outer Rim, you have a smaller chance but still a chance of getting a new group joining you, whereas if you capture Coruscant, you have a pretty good chance that that will make another group join you. These are broken into 5 different tiers based on the strength of the groups of heroes available or the units available, and each time you unlock a group, it increases the possible tier of the next group you're going to get. We're using this as an opportunity to represent all of the groups which may not warrant being on the map themselves as their own faction, but who are sometimes quite popular. For example, Storm Commandos with the popular Imperial Escort Carrier unique ship, and 2 of the Tier 4 groups are the Empire Reborn and Restored Empire, including the possibility for such heroes as Desan and Gallic Fire, once assets are ready for them. There are currently about 25 different groups available this way, with dozens of new heroes and several unique units available through that, opening up the playstyles available to different factions as they progress, and making sure that some of these smaller factions have a way to get heroes that are usually not available to them under the current systems. It should also be enough variety to help make sure each playthrough is different from the last. The second major component of each faction's legitimacy currently is determining which faction is the most or least legitimate government. On top of just the basic legitimacy score for each value, it's also representative of a percentage of the overall Imperial legitimacy. Any faction that is the lowest legitimacy or below 15% of the galactic legitimacy will not be able to unlock any of the hero groups, because who would want to join the losers, keeping those options more available for the other factions as they expand. There will also be other effects from this later, but the biggest impact right now is being able to integrate the other playable warlords when certain breakpoints are achieved. When one of those Imperial factions is reduced to having only 3 planets or fewer left with their faction leader killed, the remaining planets, including any remaining units and heroes, will join the highest legitimacy faction on the map. So even if you're not playing an Imperial faction, let's say you're playing the New Republic in one of these maps, as you take out some of the warlords, you'll start seeing the main Empire, for example, start to grow in power a little bit and unite their forces against you. So on top of being a way to get new heroes and units, and therefore open strategies you may not be otherwise able to use, this helps clean up some of the progression and gives a heightened incentive for Imperial players to target each other or leave each other open against the New Republic, and to whittle each other down, recreating the atmosphere of the Imperial Civil War and lore in an interesting way. Because there's such a variety in map sizes in the mod, the integration of territory will be disabled in some of the much smaller maps, the ones that are only a couple dozen planets. Beyond the territory though, killing off the other major factions can also unlock some units and heroes for the most legitimate faction as well, regardless of map size. For example, with the destruction of the main Empire, the Stormtrooper Corps will leave for the most legitimate faction, allowing the use of an elite infantry unit lacking in some of the other core rosters. In the faction roster videos, we spoke about how some of the factions have less versatile infantry, and this is a way for them, especially the Pentastar alignment for example, to have a wider variety of infantry to work with and different styles they can work with. Killing the Greater Maldrude will likewise give access to the Crimson Command fleet, opening up a high damage frigate for factions which may similarly lack that. Like with the early versions of the New Republic's government mechanics, these are all features which will be fleshed out and expanded throughout future versions, with additional effects as we figure out what works and what doesn't, or where gaps ought to be filled. Furthermore, each Imperial faction will get some additional elements or supplementary government mechanics to help highlight their differences even more. One example of that will be Zinj's reliance on different pirate units, so the way that he interacts with that and Legitimacy will be a little bit different. The first group that you unlock as Zinj will actually not be one of the regular Imperial group. Instead, it will be Tiber Zan's Zan Consortium, with a couple of units and heroes available to Zinj through that. So he won't have it right off the bat, but he'll get it pretty early, and it'll be just a different way for him to interact with similar mechanics. That's all for today's breakdown. There's a few more updates to come before release, especially with the Hapen content, which is still underway, but I'm hoping to do an overview video for what's changing in both Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic, covering all the major changes we've already talked about soon and some stuff we haven't mentioned yet, so stay tuned for that. Maybe even some news on when to expect a Fall of the Republic release in particular. For further news and previews beyond subscribing here, you can also check out the Discord shared between my channels and the mod linked in the description. Thanks for watching and hope to see you next time.